Good afternoon, students. This is your faculty Neha. Today we will be starting with the fourth chapter of history, and the name of the chapter is Ancient Civilization of the World. Students, before getting started with the lesson, let's see what we will be learning in today's module. So, these are the topics about which we will be learning in today's class, and the topics are the Egyptian civilization, the contributions of the Egyptians, the Nile Valley, the Mesopotamia civilization, and the Chinese civilization. So, let's get started with Egyptian civilization. Students, generally all the civilization have originated in the river plains, okay? Wherever there was a river, most of the civilization has been oriented over there. The Egyptian civilization could take birth due to the presence of the river Nile, okay? Huge pyramids, sculptures, temples, and the inscriptions in these temples tell us a lot about Egyptian culture and history. The contribution of Egyptians were they were expert farmers, okay? They were very good at farming. They knew a lot of things about irrigation. They knew how to build a temples. They invented the calendar which has helped us to measure the time. More than anything else, they have mastered the art of writing. It was a symbolic language. It consists of small drawings and has been called hieroglyphics. Every rainy season, the Nile River would transform the Nile Valley into a huge lake. After the valley dried up in summers, a fertile layer of clay soil would form the grazing field and the neighboring agriculture lands. The work that would be done by thousands of labor, the valley used to do it all alone. This fertile land provided food for the population of the first town in that area. Not all the agricultural regions were in the valley, hence, those small canals and walls were there responsible for the development of a complex system of the irrigation throughout the land. The prosperous, wealthy Egyptian peasants and the citizens during their leisure engaged themselves into a creation of artistic works. The role of the priest was to create, to interpret the nature and explain it. The priests were scholars and had a huge responsibility of protecting the written documents. Kids, they believed in life after death. They believed that man has to answer all his deeds which he has done on earth to Orisis, the most powerful god of life and death. The priest considered that life on earth was temporary and was needed only to prepare for the next life. Thus, the whole life of Nile Valley was reserved for death. The dead body would be covered in the various chemicals and wrapped with a thin cloth. The entire body was preserved, okay? The body was preserved. We call that body as mummy. It would be kept in a specially designed coffin. The grave was considered the true place for Egyptians. Hence, all around the dead body, items needed for daily use and small dolls of a cook and a barber would be kept to fulfill all the future needs of theirs. In the beginning, graves were created by carving into the rocks in the hills. As the Egyptians moved north, they had to construct graves in the deserts itself. Tall towers were built on the graves using huge blocks of stones in order to protect the eternal sleep of the dead. And the wealthy people, as well as the king, helped in building the pyramid into taller and taller towers. Okay, the Greeks calls these structures where they had built the graves, right? The Greek calls these structures as pyramids. The kings of Egypt were called pharaoh. Pharaoh means a person who lives in a partial house. The peasants who had accepted the rule of Osiris now accepted the rule of pharaohs too. After an independent, prosperous life for 20 centuries, Egypt was ruled over by an Arabian shepherd tribe called Hyksos, which attacked it, and after defeating it, it ruled for 500 years. They looted the wealth of the natives and hence did not become popular because they were looting everyone. The Jews who came wandering through the desert in search of shelter were also hated by the people of Egypt. By cooperating with the foreign rule of Jews, even assisted them in collecting taxes and in administration. In 17,000 BCE, the people of Thebes rose in revolt against the foreigners. After a prolonged conflict, they succeeded in driving Hyksos out of their country. Egypt became free once again. After 1,000 years, it came under the rule of Sardanapalus of Arasia. Now let's learn about the Mesopotamian civilization. The word Mesopotamia means the land between rivers. The two rivers, Euphrates and the Tigris, have made this West Asian barren land very fertile. It was the fertility of this area that attracted the people to it. Since food crops could be grown with little effort, the northern hilly tribes and the southern nomadic tribes of the desert tried to establish control over this area. Also, the most important area of the Mesopotamia civilization was the southern part of the valley between Euphrates and Tigris River, referred as Babylonia. The northern part of Babylonia was called Akkad and the southern part Sumer. The hanging gardens were created on the banks of the Euphrates around 7th century BC. The northern part of Mesopotamia was known as Assyria. Although there were many conflicts among the tribes to gain control over the fertile land, it eventually led to the emergence of a strong race. The major Mesopotamian tribes were the Sumerians, Babylonians, Aryans, and the Persians. These tribes used the system of writing called cuneiform for 30 centuries. The decline of the civilization. The Chaldeans were attacked by the Persians in 6th century BC. After this, after 200 years later, Alexander transformed these plates of Semitic people into Greek provinces. After the rulers of Roman and the Turks who followed Alexander, this civilization declined and turned into wilderness. Now let's go ahead and learn about Chinese civilization. It is a special feature of all the ancient civilizations that they were established on the river plains. The Chinese civilization was not exception to this, but the river which led to the establishment of the Chinese civilization was known as China's Sorrow. This was the Huanghu River. After the flood, this river changed its course in an unpredictable manner, okay, and it would render all the canals useless. This was the reason the people of that area referred to it as a symbol of sorrow. According to archaeological evidences, the first ruling family of the Chinese civilization was Shang dynasty. It ruled in the period between 18th century BCE and the 12th century BCE. Under the rule of this dynasty, people had developed a wonderful culture by 14th century. The Shang dynasty was overpowered by the neighboring Zhou dynasty. The Zhou dynasty continued the good tradition of Shang culture and ruled till 250 BCE. Now let's see the Chinese way of life. Students, the Chinese used to wear very thin cotton dresses, okay? And they were manufacturing silk, and that manufacturing silk was a prominent industry in China. The Chinese used to make excellent pots and had learned to make various objects from the porcelain. And students, it was a custom of Chinese to worship their ancestors. They believed that a dead man can become a spirit and then the spirit has special power. The dead body was buried along with various wooden articles, pots, bronze vessels, and other objects. The tombs of the kings used to be quite large. The Chinese tradition of wearing began with pictures and got transformed into ideographic script. The writer used to write on silk and bamboo slips. Porcelain and the Great Wall are the exceptional contribution of this culture. And that's all from this lesson. Thank you very much for paying attention. Students, before logging off, don't forget to mention your name and class in the comment section below. Once again, have a great day.